You mentioned communication is one of those important skills. So how or what are some of the ways that you and your team ensures that the correct message is shared across all of these platforms, especially when balancing these different groups?
Absolutely. And people speak different languages. I talk about surveillance, and what I mean is the systematic collection of data over time that tells us, who's getting who, what, and where people are being infected by different things. But some people, that can be a very triggering word. Some marginalized communities, you talk about surveillance and they think it's policing, right? That police are monitoring and following you, or government is following you. So we have to be really careful about the words we use. And this is something that I'm very passionate about. I've learned a lot from working in Ebola in northern Uganda, where you understand the community fears, and misinformation can be dangerous and lethal, and it can lead people to do things that can put their lives at risk. And very early on in this pandemic, I met with my team. We talked about how we were going to do this. I talked with the minister about how we were going to present information to the public. And I believe, and my experience tells me that words matter, and how you phrase things matters. It matters in how people hear things, but it also matters in setting the tone for how we can respond. And we look at in a crisis, if you use the wrong words, it can really trigger people to feed that fear that leads to anxiety and anger, and people will lash out. And we've seen that happen in this pandemic. We've seen that happen in crises all the time. So if you approach it the right way, you can build on the things that are positive around a crisis, people's sense of altruism, people's sense of connectedness and belonging. And we know from the work that I've done and others have done around how do we get through traumatic experiences. Some of it is our own innate resiliency based on our experiences, our family and our friends, but a lot of it is based on the community. So basically, you recover better if your community recovers better. So that was a lot of what we talked about early on in this, and I really consciously made a decision, not to use war analogies or fight analogies. And sadly, we see the impact right now in Ukraine, the impact, because war. If you use war analogies for a communicable disease, it's divisive. It splits people. It gives rise to feelings of conflict, and we don't want that because we don't have control over an infectious disease. And so we need to find things that bind us together and help us to support each other. And we talked about, because you need to have some analogy to help people understand what we're going through. And we talked about fires, and somebody was telling me he wanted to use the analogy that it's like a forest fire, but we've had very severe wildfire seasons here in British Columbia. And again, so I didn't think that was appropriate because it evokes memories of helplessness and feelings of distress for people. So we landed on this is a storm, and that we're in a global storm. And so thinking about waves and storms and winds and changing directions and facing different things. And the other thing that I think is really important, it allowed us to talk about the fact that we're all in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat. And that to me is about communicating that you don't always know that next person's story. You don't always know what's happening with them. So instead of reacting, find compassion, understanding that we all have a common suffering. We're all going through a bad time. And the way that they may be angry or acting out is because they're barely hanging on. So you can adjust your own way of dealing with that. And that's where the things that I talk a lot about kindness, about compassion, which is understanding other people are suffering, and being able to take that step back and be supportive with each other rather than reactive. So, it doesn't sound very scientific and medical, but I think it's really, really important. And I hope that's one of the things that has helped us get through in BC anyway, ways of trying to support each other through this. And heaven knows in this past year, we faced so many things, from the pandemic to the heat dome to the atmospheric rivers that wiped out all of the roads from the lower mainland. I mean, it has been really, the discovery of unmarked graves and to come with the Shrevenick. Those are things that we need to have compassion for each other and support each other to get through.
It's coming down kind of heavy, but I'm not shy. Throw my splash to the puddle and I'm feeling fine. I got